Hello to all the rugby league diehards and welcome to another episode of Six to Go. My name is Tom Canfell and it's great to have your company. As we head into today's episode, you know how it works. We will cover 6 topics related to the game or even their own career. My guest this week is Jamie Simpson, former South Sydney Rabbitohs player who had a brief stint at the end of his career over in the Super League playing for Huddersfield. He has since transitioned into the radio world and is an avid worker in the community, as well as being an ambassador for Lymphoma Australia. I was happy to have him on the show this week, and considering we work in the same building, this episode is probably a little overdue. Hope you enjoy our chat. Here's Jamie Simpson. I'm joined by Jamie Simpson as the next guest of the 6 to Go podcast. Hey, Simo, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Really good. Really happy to have you on, mate. And I've got 6 topics to cover with you today. And I'll kick things off with the year so far. I want you to complete the sentence for me. I know it's only round 3, but...
I'm over it already. No, I'm not. Listen, I for the first time I started to watch a whole game, the Sharks versus Dragons.
Yep.
And I got nearly the whole way through it. And one of the players did a ball and all tackle and just clipped the chin of someone, and he got sent for 10 in the bin.
Yep.
I just can't enjoy the game the way that it is at the moment. It just doesn't represent what rugby league is to me. I mean, I grew up watching the Winfield Cup, you know, so when tough blokes were tough blokes and footy was footy. So there's a fair few mullets getting around. So in that respect, it's probably the same. But yeah, no, I just can't enjoy it as much anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the one last night with Jaden Sewer in particular, I thought was ridiculous. And he got sin bin last week as well they said that he was late on Sean O'Sullivan. Mate. Even Sean O'Sullivan came out and said, mate, I can't believe he got sin bin for that.
I know. We do it every year though. Like, oh, the referees, they got to do something, but it's just a broken record. And I can't see how it's going to be fixed because the way the game's going at the moment, you know, the way the interchange is, how players aren't your old school players, they're more athletes than anything. The game's only going to get quicker and quicker, and the way they change the rules is exactly how it's going. So, yeah, I can't see this changing anytime soon.
They've obviously brought in the rule this year that if it's a 6 to go on your own 40-metre line, they'll actually blow a penalty.
Yeah.
And that has slowed the game down from last year. Now, it might be quicker than 5 years ago, but it's slowed the game down from last year.
Yeah.
I actually thought that whilst you saw more blowouts last year, I thought when it was a close game last year, I thought that's the best football we've seen in the past 10 years. So when you got for example, Roosters played Storm in a game, I think it might have been in 2020.
Yep.
And during COVID times, no one around in the grandstand. But that to me was one of the best games I've ever seen. But of course, you get more blowouts. And now that they've brought in this rule that they've slowed the game down, obviously a lot more closer games. But you're still not a fan of the pace of the game?
No, I'm not. I'd like to see it slow down and bring the big boys back into it. I mean, I was small, so it would probably suit me down to a T. I was never that fit though, so yeah, maybe not. But yeah, I just want to see the big boys come back into it, have the big boppers in the middle, and actually you remember like Shane Webke's of old Petro Civonicevas. I think even they would struggle with the pace of the game, and they were some of the best. So
and you bring up a good point because I had Josh Hannay on a few weeks ago, and he said that with guys like Sam Walker coming into the game, 18 years old, not a big bloke at all, 10 years ago there would be a large reluctance to bring him into the game. Yeah. Now there's not so much. And because you said the effect of the big guys is taken away.
Yeah. So he doesn't have those big boys after him 24/7. I think even when you look at what's feeding into the NRL, your New South Wales Cup, your Queensland Cup and things like that, I even think the physicality has kind of gone away as well. Whereas back in the day, that's where you would blood the younger blokes. You know, if they were good enough, they wouldn't play Colts. They would play Queensland Cup, play against grown men, get used to it, and then make the step up. Because the step up between Queensland Cup and NRL, back when I was around, the pace of the game was absolutely ridiculous from Queensland Cup to NRL. But apart from that, the physicality was right on point. So, yeah, I don't think it's there anymore either.
Yeah, you make a lot of great points. And for me, I know it's only round 3, but I think Nicho Hines is going to win the Dally M.
He's looking good, isn't he?
Looks great. And he's got a bit of a similar trait that Tom had last year, and a lot of Dally M medalists win, where everything that goes right for the team goes through him.
Yeah.
And he's really brought that to Cronulla, and he looks fantastic. And they've won 2 out of their 3 games so far. And he's had a massive role to do with that.
He does. And you know what? I think you look at who's coaching in Craig Fitzgibbon. one of the ultimate professionals of the game, and you can see that they're a well-coached team, and you can see that Nico, even though he's only 3 weeks in, he's picking up all the things that he's being taught, and each week he's getting better, which is a dangerous thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's get to the end of the season and see where he's at, but I'll tell you what, he's looking good.
So I'd like to have a chat about your old club, South Sydney. I know at the time of recording this, they haven't played the Roosters this week just yet. We're recording this Friday afternoon. But they haven't won a game yet, and as it stands now, they've lost Reynolds, Gagai, Sewer, the main big three from last year. Do you still think that they're finals-worthy team?
Oh, listen, it's early to say, isn't it? But I do think they've got a squad there that could go to the finals. Whether or not they get there, I don't know, is a different question. I think there was always teething problems after Wayne Bennet leaves the club. But you look at the clubs that Wayne's left in the past, he's taken a lot of the coaching staff with him. So whether it be strength and con, assistant coaches, all that kind of stuff, they've gone with Wayne. But this time around, he was more like a mentor to Jason there. So he's kind of taught Jason the ways and not taken many people with him. So I think South are in a good spot. They're just lacking that leadership at half. And I think given time, the boys that are there will gain some experience and be okay. But, yeah, they're not the team that they were, put it that way. But they've still got a strong squad. It's
a lot of pressure to put on young Lachlan Ilias there at halfback, and I actually think he's done an okay job. It's just you look at the fact as well that when Latrell plays and when they've got their three main playmakers there, Cook, Cody and Latrell, they really have to maximise when they've got all these three people in the team because Origin's going to come up and they're going to miss Cook, assumably, for that time.
Yeah, well, surely he'll be gone.
And Latrell, love him, but he is a dangerous for suspension any week he plays.
Well, especially this week.
Yep, and exactly. So by the time this podcast comes out, he could be done for
Who knows, mate? Who knows? Who knows?
But I know that they did come back against Melbourne, but for 70 minutes there, they really didn't fire a shot.
Nah, they were atrocious.
So, and they play Roosters this week, and I think Penrith next week with Cleary back.
Yep.
So there is a real element there that they could be 0-4.
Yeah.
And I know that by the time this comes out, they could beat the Roosters and, be right back on track.
They will beat the Roosters. This is what we're trying to say. No, listen, there's one team that South have to beat every year. Well, two teams, and that's Roosters and Dragons. So they'll live for this game. But I really do think that they're missing Reynolds in the middle. It not only does he provide stability for the whole team, but he allows Cody Walker to do what Cody Walker does. Take on the line, be that playmaker who run and go, show and goes and all that kind of stuff. So without him there, that's where I see them struggling the most. So they just need that old, mature head to kind of settle the whole team down and get them going. But it's going to be hard against a Roosters team who are stacked.
Did you have anything to do with Adam when he was coming through?
So, yeah, Ads was coming through. He was being about under 20s when I was at South. So he was coming into the top grade squad when both Chris Sando and myself were there. So Chrissy had a little bit more to do with Adam than myself. But, yeah, he was coming through. He was a great bloke. And you can see that the type of effect he has on the team, so that he's in. He's a good character, and he's a steady character as well.
It's quite remarkable, isn't it? If you were in Brisbane at the start of this year, you would have seen all the billboards around with Adam Reynolds' face at the front of it.
Everywhere.
And it'd be quite a foreign thing 15 years ago to see a South Sydney junior who hasn't played a game for the Broncos yet on the billboards, front and centre for the Broncos everywhere.
Mate, it's weird. Like, I get added to South, fan pages, every week, the Borough and all that kind of stuff. And they've actually had to tell the people in those groups to stop posting about Gagai. Stop posting about Reynolds. They're not at South anymore. Because it's so surreal to see a person like Adam Reynolds who grew up around South Sydney play for another team, albeit a Queensland team, the Brisbane Broncos. So it's unheard of. But, mate, hasn't he had, the impact he's had at the club since arriving there has been amazing. And if he can stay fit, mate, Broncos, who knows?
It's remarkable. And I spoke to Ben Eichen a couple of months ago, and he said he's by far the biggest recruit the Broncos have ever had.
Ever? Is that what he said?
And so...
Ike was at the Broncos, mate.
He's wrapped with him. And you're right. If he can stay healthy, that's the one thing.
Yeah.
But he should be a great recruit for them, no doubt. At the time of recording this, Simo, like I said, South haven't played the Roosters yet, but I'd like to ask you about that rivalry and what it's become. And there's no doubt, to me, it's the number one rivalry in the game. Was there When you were there, was there any added emphasis on that week back then?
Yeah, 100%. Leading into it, you knew when you're coming up against the Roosters, things would always be more intense at training, and Russell would bring us aside and give us a little pep talk even before the game. So I think we got around 2 or 3 pep talks the whole time I was there by Mr. Crowe, and I think 2 of them before a Roosters game and 1 was for a St. George game. So they were very gladiatorish. Didn't have the desired effect that he probably wanted, but no, I don't think we lost against the Roosters. Actually, I think I scored a hat trick against them twice. So yeah, I was happy with going against them every day of the week if I could.
Does he actually have a book of feuds, Russell?
Yeah. He's got mate. That's not for show. Everything Russell puts out there is for real. No, but honestly, yeah, the mood, the intensity, everything around the club kind of changed when you're playing the Roosters. It's a different game. It's like a grand final. Like everything is prepared differently. So I know it's probably, you can't really say it's more important than any other game, but it is.
It is.
Without saying so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do love the fact that the NRL matchmakers have done a little bit of a sneaky little thing here, because they actually, this was meant to be Latrell's first game back.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
But because of the All-Stars game and he got a week less, so he come back last week. So they actually lined it up for him, his first week back, to be against the Roosters.
What a coinky that was, hey? Who did that? No, honestly, but it would have been a great game for him to come back in. But now that he's got 1 game under his belt, you know, he played great. So that kick he did, the first 2-point field goal I've seen myself, although I don't watch too much footy anymore. But, you know, let's just hope he can keep his cool in this game, because that's the only thing holding Latrell back from being the best player in the world.
That's right.
Is his attitude on the field. Because, mate, off the field, he's a good bloke. On the field, you know, he's just got that switch where he can click and, you know, he loses it. So it's a disappointment because he's such a great player.
Yeah. You mentioned Russell before. Do you have a Russell story for me that you can share?
Oh, that I can share. I don't know. Are the salary cap people listening in? No, I'm joking. No, listen. All in all, I was awestruck at just how much Russell loves the club, loves the players, and just loves the community as whole. South Sydney. He will do anything and everything to keep the club afloat, and I think he's shown just how much he's put into it. I mean, the time that I spent around him, apart from being starstruck, was really good. I soaked in everything he said and kind of things like that. And I did have a closer relationship to him than some players probably did, but it was great because, you know, he took me in under his wing kind of, so it was really good times. But when I left, I never spoke to him again.
We've seen private ownership come into the game, and to be honest, it hasn't worked out ideally. He would be the model of what you would want if private ownership come in, wouldn't you?
Definitely. I think Souths have done so many things because of Russell's influence. Like, I don't think we've seen many teams go and play an exhibition match against a Super League team in America.
Yep.
I mean, that happened in my first year we were there, and like it was the most amazing thing. Like a young bloke coming from Rockhampton who's never flown out of the country before, let alone to anywhere else. So going down there, flying business class over to America to play Leeds Rhinos was amazing. So it opens it up not only just for the club but for the whole sport. Like, he does a lot for South Sydney, but he does a lot to promote the NRL everywhere. So I think you look at, Snoop Dogg, Michael Irving, they've all got Rabbitohs hats on. Pamela Anderson, Eva Mendes, they've all got the hats on. They've come to the games and come into the dressing rooms afterwards. It's just a spin out to think how much influence he has on promoting rugby league as a sport and South Sydney.
Yeah, he'll go on Jimmy Fallon and give out hats to everyone.
Mate,
and he's fantastic.
The hats, mate, their hats are a must. If you're a superstar somewhere, he's going to give you a hat. Yeah,
he's the reason for the random South fan at all the events.
Oh, the random South fans are mate. That's Russell's doing. Not only that, if you look around too, what was a great marketing campaign back in the day for South was they mailed out bunny stickers to everyone.
Yep.
So they literally mailed out a bunny sticker, whether you're a Roosters fan or they didn't care, mate. If you're in the catchment area of the South Sydney area, they posted you a bunny sticker. And if you went anywhere within Matraville, Malabar, Maroubra, there was a Rabbitoh sticker on every car. Everyone wanted one. It was the best marketing ploy I've ever seen.
Fantastic. Simo, when you played at South Sydney, they were about halfway through a rebuilding phase en route to the early 2010s where they became a bit of a powerhouse after that and perennial title contenders pretty much ever since. Throughout your time at South, did you get the feeling that they were on the right track?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, when I first went to South, we were still at Erskineville Oval, so I wouldn't call it dilapidated, but it was a rundown training facilities on par with what we have here at the Capras, basically. And then because Redfern was getting built, once we moved from Urco to Redfern, the mood changed. You could see it was more professional, all that kind of stuff. We had Craig Wing, Roy Asatazi, John Sutton, all those players there, and you could see that the club was kicking into a new gear. And I think everything was improving off the field fast, but not so much on the field. But as you can see, history tells that they did get to the grand final and win it. It's no mean feat, really. I mean, you can see it happening.
Yep. For a team to turn it around like South did, and if you look at a team like the Tigers haven't played finals since Jesus played fullback for Jerusalem.
Yeah, long time.
Bloody hell. The key has to be local juniors, doesn't it? With that South team that won the comp, you had a crop of local juniors come through.
Yeah.
Adam Reynolds, John Sutton was there, obviously. Luke Keary, South junior.
Yep.
A real crop of juniors have to come through the system, don't they?
They do. And South was so good at that. I mean, have you seen South Juniors headquarters down there?
I haven't.
Oh,
no.
it's bigger than South. Like, it's one of the biggest junior clubs in Australia, put it that way. It's massive. So the amount of money that they generate and the amount of players that they pump out, it obviously helps the club. And you see those likes of James Segiaro, Adam Reynolds, players like that come through and make a difference the way they have. It's definitely a big part of the club.
When you look at the Tigers, Paul Kent wrote an article this week, and it was a bit of a harsh reality, I think, that he said no one at the Tigers now will be there when the Tigers win a premiership.
He's probably not wrong.
He's not wrong. And, it's a long process, isn't it, when a team's down that far to be able to rebuild?
Yeah, and it sometimes the analogy I like to use when you're in those situations is like quicksand. So the harder you try, the further down you'll go. So, hopefully for the Tigers, it's not like that. But I tell you what, they do have a pretty long way to go before they get back to the top. But there's a fine line between that, though. Like, it's only a game or two and they could go on a run.
Yeah.
They could win 8 in a row and then, surprise us all.
When it's talked about South and their resurgence at that late part of the 2000 going into the 2010s, it's talked about Roy Asatasi and what a buy he was. Can you talk to me about what he was like at the club?
Roy, mate, he was like a professional. So always the first person in, last person out. And he brought that kind of mentality to South. And a lot of players obviously picked up on it straight away. And then it gave South the power to go out and talk to players that probably wouldn't have joined if Roy didn't come in and say, we got Roy Satazi coming. John Sutton, our junior, he's coming through the ranks. And then they got Craig Wing. And then they did the same thing. So they used those as bargaining chips and got a lot of players in. So without Roy, I don't think you can say that South would have got Inglis.
Yeah.
So it all started with the Roy Satazi signing, and it was such a big leap of faith for him to leave the Doggies and go to South and do what he did. So probably a lot of it's got to do with him.
A lot of credit goes his way for sure. I'd love to ask you about your time in England. I know it was a brief stint in the Super League, but at what stage of the journey did you realise that it would be a genuine option for you to go over there?
It was quick, man. I'll be honest with you. I always wanted to go to England to play, just to experience a culture and a different type of rugby league over there. I never thought I would go over, though. And it all come about when Inglis was signing with South. Like, my manager at the time said, now might be the time to leave. I was still under contract, and I didn't even think of it. I was like, oh, do you think so? And I was easily impressionable, obviously. I was like, oh, do you think I should go? And he reckons, oh, mate, it might be in your best interest to take off, Greg, you play centre. But at that time, I was playing utility anyway, so it probably wouldn't have had much of an impact on me. So, I talked to the guys at South, and they were hesitant to let me go, but they said in the long run, we're not going to keep you here if you don't want to be here. And I said, oh, yeah, I wouldn't mind testing the waters overseas. I got in contact with Trent Robinson, who was at Catalan Dragons, and he offered me a 1-year contract. I said, oh, listen, mate, I don't want to come over for 1 year. I actually want to make a good go of it. And that's when Nathan Brown from Huddersfield said, oh, we'll give you 2-3 year deal. And I said, yeah, lock it in, let's go. So it was like that in a matter of 2 weeks.
we've seen a lot of English players come over in the past 10 years and absolutely dominate. You know, James Graham, Sam Burgess, Gareth Widdop,
Yeah.
Josh Hodgson, for example. When you were over there, was it a big topic of discussion amongst English players about asking you about the NRL, for example, or coming back?
A lot of the boys asked about the NRL and what it was like compared to where they are now and the level of professionalism and so forth. But I actually think in certain ways it's easier for someone from England to come to the NRL and give it a good crack than it is the other way around. Like we see the freaks of nature, like the athletes who are great who go over to England and just kill it straight away. But what I found hard was the weather. Like I just could not get fit. Went over, didn't like the food. I love the weather, just couldn't get fit, couldn't breathe, bad asthma, couldn't train on the ground. You know, It's soft ground compared to the hard ground. So I love my time there. It's just, mate, I just could not get fit to save myself.
Yeah, right. Do you think we'll see more English players come over here, like in the future,
Yeah.
or is it still because the Super League is growing over there?
Yeah.
But do you think there is still that massive attraction to come to the NRL?
I think there is because the Super League can only grow so much over there because it is, let's face it, I think they might the fourth most popular sport in England.
Very cool.
And it will never, ever, ever outgrow the sports that are in front of it. So if you want to be at the pinnacle of the sport, play Super League, win it, why not come to Australia and play in the best competition in the world and see how you go? So I think the attraction for them is very big to come to Australia and do that. And there's some talented players there. Like the level of play between the NRL and Super League isn't that far off. So, yeah.
Finally, Simo, we could have done a whole episode on this last topic, but it's no secret that when you were younger, you battled cancer. And I heard you do an interview with Andy Raymond recently. And Andy will be on the show in the next couple of weeks. He will.
Oh, he's a good lad.
During that interview, you talked about a message you got from Wayne Bennet.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that and what Wayne did for you?
So in the lead up to it, Scotty Minto, local legend, we were family friends with him, and he was down at Brisbane at the time, and he'd found out I was crook, and he'd obviously gone to Wayne and said, "Oh, Wayne, can you write in a book for Jamie and say something, nice to get his spirits up?" So Wayne had written in his autobiography, "Tough times come and go, but tough times come and go, but tough guys last forever." And that stuck with me for my whole life, and I take it with me to my grave. Like I live by that now. So not only did he say that, but he said at the bottom of it, along with Scott, he said, "All the best, Jamie. Hope you get well. We can't wait to see you in a few years when you're down at the club." So I just took that with me, and it was like a message that I replayed over and over and over in my head before I went to bed every night. So it was something that drove me to play in the NRL. So, mate, I owe a lot to Wayne, even though he probably doesn't even know it.
Yeah,
I owe a lot to him and the message that he gave me as such a kid. That's why when I was lucky enough to play in the NRL, if I was ever asked to do something for a kid, for a fan, I'd do it. If a fan asked me for me boots after the game, even if I had none left, I'd go, "Here, mate, take them." Because that little thing that you do for them might be little for you, but for that kid, that's the best thing that's ever happened to them.
Do you feel that those relationships off field is Wayne's biggest strengths that he's able to form?
It's funny because what you see Wayne like in the media is not the person that he is. He's a great man manager and he's a great person. As you can see, the relationship he formed over so many years at the Broncos, each club he goes to, everyone wants to go and play for him. It's not just because he's a good coach. It's because he's a good man.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's remarkable, isn't it, that Wayne's been coaching for 35 years and there's still this aura about him. And, he's off to the Dolphins now. He'll start there next year, obviously, as head coach. How do you think he'll go?
Oh, mate, no doubt he'll bring success to the club. Whether I don't mean success as in a premiership or anything like that, but he will help them get off the ground and running a lot quicker than any other coach would. And I think the buying power that he has, being Wayne Bennet, is going to help them tremendously. And I think, you look now, he's signing players up now, doing the groundwork, getting development up and running. Not that you have to do too much of that at Redcliffe because they're so strong. But, yeah, mate, I think success follows him everywhere, and it's not a coincidence.
Selfishly, I'm glad that Redcliffe have partnered with the Capras.
It's great.
How good is that?
I know.
Mate, like Rocky boys, just quietly.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's good because Capras have always been a strong side, never necessarily a winning side, but it's always been that stepping stone to bigger and better things. So hopefully now that we have this strong relationship with the Dolphins, we keep a lot of our stronger players locally more, and then we send them down to Redcliffe when they're ready. Because what happens here in CQ, and I've seen it so many times over the year, whether it be as a player or as a coach, is that we send our great players off far too early, straight out of school. They go down to the big lights, they get caught up in it, and within a year or two, they're homesick and they come back and they've lost 3 years of their life. They don't like footy anymore. And then it takes them another 2 years to go, you know what, I'll give it a crack again, and then play for the Capras. So hopefully we keep those boys local. They experience what it's like playing against men in the Queensland Cup. Go down to Redcliffe, and we'll see more CQ boys in the NRL.
I'm with you there. Well, Simo, that's all I've got for you. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Thanks so much.
Nah, all good, mate. Sorry it took so long. I think I cancelled about 3 times.
We work in the same building. It was bound to happen. Thanks, mate.
Nah, all good.
A big thanks to Jamie for coming on the show today. He's an absolute champion, and I'd love to have him on again in the future. By the way, if you want to get in contact with me, you can on Twitter at @TCanfell, and don't forget to give the 6 to Go Facebook page a like as well. My name is Tom Canfell. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Until next time, this has been the 6 to Go podcast, and that is full time.